The British Airways anniversary card was supposed to look like a sweet romantic moment, but the second people started reading the actual wording on that card, the entire story exploded into something far more awkward, far more calculated, and honestly far more suspicious than anyone expected. Because this was not just a random happy anniversary note from a friendly crew member handing champagne to a celebrity passenger. No, this became a full-blown mystery involving missing passengers, pre-written messages, media exclusives, airline policies, and one gigantic question nobody at British Airways seems willing to answer publicly. May 18, 2026. British Airways flight BA269 prepares to leave Heathrow for Los Angeles, a 12-hour flight, a premium cabin full of wealthy travelers. But one passenger immediately stands out, Meghan Markle. Her name reportedly appears on the manifest. Harry's does not. That tiny detail would become the crack that shattered the entire spontaneous anniversary surprise narrative only hours later, because somewhere during that flight, Meghan is handed a beautifully written anniversary card addressed not just to her, but to Harry and Meghan, together, as a couple, as if both were sitting on that aircraft side by side. Except, according to every available public report, Harry was nowhere near that plane. And this is where the internet stopped smiling politely and started asking questions. By the next morning, the card suddenly appeared on Meghan's Instagram story. Then, almost immediately, the media machine kicked into motion. People magazine, Hello magazine, GB News. One after another, the exact same story flooded timelines across social media. A touching anniversary gesture, a caring flight crew, a beautiful moment in the sky. But the more people looked at the details, the stranger the story became. Because there were 3 separate clues buried inside this entire situation, and together they painted a picture that felt far less accidental than the public was being told. Before the flight, Meghan had been in Geneva speaking publicly about social media and its impact on children. But the next morning, she reportedly traveled from Switzerland through Heathrow before boarding BA269 alone for the long flight back to California. No reports placed Harry on the plane. No photos showed him at Heathrow. Multiple publications covering the trip described it as Meghan traveling solo. Yet somehow a handwritten anniversary card appeared addressed lovingly to both Harry and Meghan, complete with signatures, champagne, and treats for the children. That's where the first major red flag appeared. Why would airline staff prepare a couple-themed anniversary setup for a husband who wasn't even on board? Then came the timing. The flight lands in Los Angeles. Within hours, the Instagram post appears. Then People magazine publishes an exclusive source to someone close to the Duchess of Sussex. Suddenly, the public is told the crew all came over to celebrate, shared emotional memories of the royal wedding, and personally congratulated Meghan on her anniversary. Conveniently emotional, conveniently polished, conveniently ready for headlines almost immediately after landing. And people noticed, fast. Now the card itself became the center of the storm. Dearest Harry and Meghan. Those 4 words changed everything, because airline crews normally address the actual passenger sitting in front of them. That's standard practice. If a celebrity is flying alone, the message goes to the individual on board, not to a spouse absent from the cabin, which means somebody somewhere already knew this was supposed to be presented as an anniversary moment for the couple before the flight even ended. And suddenly, people began wondering whether this entire thing had been arranged ahead of time. Then another detail surfaced, the handwriting. The main body of the card appears written by one person. The captain's message appears written separately in another hand entirely. Captain Ed French reportedly signed a personalized note congratulating Meghan on the anniversary specifically. Again, how did he know? Captains review passenger manifests? Yes. VIP passengers receive attention? Yes. But wedding anniversaries are not psychic revelations. Somebody had to provide that information beforehand. Either Meghan's team informed British Airways systems flagged it automatically, or someone coordinated the entire thing manually before takeoff. Those are the only realistic explanations. And then came the most damaging twist of all. People online discovered British Airways actually outlines similar anniversary procedures publicly on its own website. Suddenly, screenshots spread everywhere. The airline explains that cabin crews can access passenger loyalty information and sometimes organize anniversary gestures, including champagne and signed cards. cards. Even more shocking, reports circulated that passengers themselves can allegedly notify staff in advance about anniversaries and personalized messages, which instantly changed the public perception from sweet surprise to carefully prearranged PR moment. At that point, the entire story transformed from romance into reputation damage. Critics began openly mocking the situation online. Some claim Meghan wanted another viral "look how adored I am" moment. Others accuse the Sussex camp of pushing carefully manufactured emotional content through the exact same media outlets that have repeatedly carried anonymous Sussex-friendly exclusives since 2017. Even commentators on television started questioning why an 8th anniversary was suddenly being promoted like a royal state occasion, while senior royals like William and Catherine handled milestone anniversaries with far less spectacle. And perhaps the strangest part of all? British Airways never publicly clarified anything. No official statement confirming the gesture was spontaneous. No denial either, just silence. Complete silence while the internet ripped apart every line of that card frame by frame. That silence only fueled more suspicion because corporations usually love positive celebrity publicity. Airlines normally amplify these kinds of stories. But here, nothing. Not a word. Meanwhile, royal commentators started connecting this moment to a much bigger pattern. Carefully timed Instagram posts, coordinated exclusives, emotional family content, brand-building narratives, everything arriving together in perfectly polished waves. Critics claim the anniversary card wasn't just a random in-flight gesture. They believed it was another carefully staged Sussex media rollout designed to dominate headlines and drive engagement at a time when Meghan's commercial brand desperately needed momentum. What made this entire British Airways card situation spiral completely out of control wasn't just the card itself. It was the pattern people started noticing around it, because once the internet stopped looking at the anniversary post as an isolated cute celebrity moment and started placing it beside every other Sussex media rollout over the past few years, the whole thing suddenly looked less like romance and more like strategy. And critics were ruthless about it. The timing alone raised eyebrows. Meghan had just delivered a highly publicized speech in Geneva. Cameras everywhere, headlines everywhere. Then, almost instantly after returning home, another emotional story appeared online featuring a heartfelt anniversary gesture from airline staff, complete with champagne, handwritten notes, and media exclusives ready to publish within hours. It felt polished, too polished, like every piece had already been lined up before the aircraft even touched the runway in Los Angeles. And people noticed how fast the narrative spread. The Instagram story appears, then the articles, then the commentary, then the social media debates. Boom, one after another like dominoes falling exactly on schedule. What really fueled the backlash was the growing accusation that Meghan constantly needs public validation moments staged around her image. That's what critics kept hammering over and over again. Not just look how loved she is by Harry, but look how adored she is by everyone. Airline crews, staff members, magazine editors, public audiences. The card suddenly became symbolic of something bigger people had been whispering about for years. The idea that every emotional Sussex moment arrived suspiciously camera-ready. Then commentators started revisiting older stories, previous candid Sussex moments, previous anonymous source exclusives, previous glossy emotional family posts landing conveniently in the exact same publications. And suddenly, this BA269 anniversary card didn't feel unique anymore. Critics claimed it looked like the same playbook all over again. Emotional image, anonymous source, friendly publication, viral social media circulation, public sympathy, brand reinforcement, same formula, different week. What made matters worse was that several royal commentators openly suggested the Sussexes were under enormous pressure financially and commercially. Their Netflix momentum reportedly slowed. Projects remained in development instead of actually launching. Hollywood buzz weakened. And according to critics, that meant Meghan's personal image now had to carry much more weight publicly. Suddenly, every emotional moment, every family post, every anniversary gesture became part of something larger, maintaining visibility, maintaining engagement, maintaining relevance. And then came another uncomfortable observation people couldn't ignore: the children. Some critics argued the anniversary rollout wasn't even just about Harry and Meghan anymore. They claimed the references to the children, the sweets for the kids, the emotional family framing all worked together to make the moment feel softer and more marketable online. Royal commentators openly accused the Sussex media machine of increasingly placing the children at the emotional center of brand-driven storytelling. That criticism hit hard because once people began seeing the anniversary post through that lens, the backlash intensified dramatically. publicly. But the thing that truly haunted this story was British Airways' silence. Silence can sometimes say more than statements ever could. If this had genuinely been a spontaneous, sweet interaction from an excited cabin crew, why not proudly confirm it? Why not celebrate it publicly? Airlines love celebrity publicity, especially positive celebrity publicity. Yet British Airways reportedly refused to elaborate, refused to clarify, and refused to directly defend the spontaneous narrative. That silence became gasoline on the fire because people started interpreting it as quiet corporate distancing. And honestly, the deeper people looked, the stranger the optics became. A card addressed to Harry despite Harry not being there. A captain writing personalized anniversary congratulations. A loyalty program system capable of flagging personal milestones. A media rollout already waiting almost immediately after landing. None of those details individually prove orchestration, but together they created a story that felt very difficult to dismiss as coincidence. That's why this exploded beyond just royal gossip. It became a debate about authenticity itself. Because here's the uncomfortable reality hanging over this entire situation: people no longer simply consume celebrity stories at face value. They investigate them. They zoom into screenshots. They compare timelines. They track anonymous sources. They read airline policies. And once the audience starts feeling manipulated instead of emotionally moved, the backlash becomes brutal. That's exactly what happened here. The more polished the anniversary moment appeared, the less organic it felt. Now, the BA269 card has become something far bigger than a handwritten anniversary message. To critics, it represents a carefully managed image machine operating behind the scenes. To supporters, it's still just a sweet gesture cruelly overanalyzed by hostile commentators. But regardless of which side people choose, one thing became impossible to ignore: the official version of events left too many unanswered questions hanging in the air. And that's why this story refuses to disappear. Because the card is still there. The Instagram post is still there. The People magazine article is still there. The silence from British Airways is still there. And somewhere between those handwritten words, "Dearest Harry and Meghan," and the missing husband who allegedly never boarded that plane at all, the entire fairy tale started falling apart in public.